Hello, everybody. I thought I'd bring you through some of the discoveries that I've made over the years that have led me up to the style of neck veneering that I like now. You may remember that the genesis of this, the inspiration, was the lute neck from the Renaissance. And this is kind of a crude sketch of how that works, where this big part in the middle is a piece of lightweight softwood, vertical grain. I've drawn it vertical grain with a couple of pieces of veneer, one for the fingerboard and one for the back of the neck, and then pieces of string tied around the neck to create frets. So this is a early fretting scheme. Anyway, an awful lot of good things about this. You get a lightweight neck that is very stiff. So you create a torsion box by covering this softwood core with hard structures on both sides, which means that it's very good in both bending and also in torsion. So it's a lovely structure. In 1982, I think it was, I put this crazy thing together. So here's a true revelation of what a nut job I am. I believe the body is made of 2x4 lumber, and then you can see there's two aluminum structures here that bend out of the way for the pickups, but they continue in grooves, if I'm remembering correctly, that I cut in the phenolic fingerboard, and the nut structure bolts to those two pieces of aluminum, which of course continue the length of the neck. And in this structure, the veneer is just this really thin piece of aluminum with some kind of mylar or plastic covering on the back. And it's not designed to create any real structural help, but just as a playing surface. And then everything else in there that is not aluminum, phenolic, and this light veneer is expanding foam, which I don't know how well you can see that, but there's the only place you can see it. And obviously, I had a little trouble with the end of my mold. I made a mold out of mahogany to help form this surface, because when the expanding foam expands, as we know, it creates some pressure. Anyhow, this was just kind of a playful experiment. I remember when I first met Reeves Gabrels, he got a hold of this thing and wanted me to give it to him, which I probably should have, but anyway, I didn't. The reason I don't have a lot of other things to show you from this period is that I'm really good at loaning people things and not as good at getting them back. Anyway, this was an early thing. This was a one-off, didn't really go anywhere, but I will mention that one thing that was part of this design, no adjustable truss rod, and I felt that I would be able to adjust the neck just by bending the neck so that the aluminum rods that create the structure of the neck would be responsive to being bent and work kind of as an adjustable truss rod, although not with a screw, rather with a press. And then here I'm looking at the way the neck is looking, and it's just perfect, actually. Just the way I like it. 40-year-old strings, still working. Thank you, D'Addario. So there it is. I'm not sure this even got a name, but that was my first veneered instrument. And then I went on to build things like this. I was mostly working with 6-string basses, long scale. I think this one is 36-inch scale 6-string bass, left-handed, of course. The first ones that I did, I veneered the back of the neck with maple or ebony veneer, which was quite a trick, as you can imagine, to try and get the veneer to bend like this. And then you can easily see why it's a lot more fun to veneer a lute neck shape than a guitar neck shape, because this is a much gentler bend on the back. Anyhow, that was problematic. Getting ebony to curve around the back of the neck was trouble. By the way, here was a little place that's designed to be a landing spot for the composite material, so I could cut that away and, create a shape out of it and not have to figure out how to terminate it. So this was a different level than the rest of the body. This is one big piece of Sitka spruce, beautifully quartered wood that sounds great. See all these big medullary rays there. Fun. This was a fun project, and one of those ones that never made it to the end. The instrument before this style was one that I can show you sometime. It's not in the building right now, but here's the cutoff of that neck, and here's some nearly vertical cedar core material. This big piece of material here is just a workboard that's not part of the instrument. And then you can see that this is carbon fiber. You can see the carbon fiber hairs here. And this configuration of carbon fiber is called tow, T-O-W. And well, all that means is that it's just a bunch of parallel fibers that come on a spool. So you unroll the spool, you can see my attempts to keep it in one piece with masking tape and staples. A whole lot of trouble to manipulate, very difficult to get it even. But anyway, this instrument came out okay. And as I said, I can show you that sometime when that comes back. This was the only instrument I built with that tow method of carbon reinforcing because it was such a pain to work with. And then, so I switched to working with woven carbon, and you can see this is 90-degree weave. This is just a plain weave, so over one, under one. Pretty common configuration for carbon or fiberglass reinforcement, and this is a medium weight material. So I would probably have used maybe 2 layers of this to reinforce a big instrument like this. And then just to show you, this carbon cloth is available in a whole bunch of configurations, and you can see this one, almost all the fibers are in 0-degree orientation, and there's these tiny little cross-grained fibers that are woven that really aren't there for structure, but rather just to keep everything in column and to keep the thickness even. So I can't remember what this is called, but this is it's basically 0-degree fiber orientation with just a little helper thread to help keep things together and make it easier to handle. And indeed, it was much easier to handle than this tow thing, which was really difficult and problematic. Again, hard to wet, hard to handle, hard to keep the fibers straight, hard to keep the thickness correct everywhere. So the woven stuff was a big help for that. And then, this is the first prototype for the fly guitar, which I think we showed a little while ago, and this was a victim of a vacuum pump disaster. But anyway, that was the beginning of this, wrapping the carbon fiber around the whole body, perhaps, instead of just the neck, the way it was on this left-handed long scale 6-string bass. So this is, I don't know, 1987 maybe, or 85, somewhere in there, 85 maybe, was this guy. And then this is 92 or 91. This was the first of the basses that we took to the trade show in 1992 when the fly guitar came out. So this is a 34-inch scale, 5-string bass. It really sounds nice. And it's still a great instrument, plays great. The neck is held up beautifully, although, as you can see, one of the frets has fallen off. It's always something. Finally, I'll show you this instrument neck, which is an early embodiment of what I'm doing today. This was from 2007, I think. And I'll start the next film with this part because there's some interesting things to explain about how this was made. This is a combination, of course, of the beautiful wood covering, which is a veneer, and then carbon reinforcement. Not a woven one, but one more like this, where all the fibers are 0 degrees. That is lengthwise parallel to the strings in the neck. Okay, so this just a quick look at how this happens in my work life. So the first one over there was 1982. This is 1992-ish. And then this one from 2007.